Hi, I'm Justin Young.
And I'm Austin Maychak, and we are your hosts today on What's Up at Shaw U.
We recently had the opportunity to host the National Association of Black Journalists Basic Boot Camp on our campus, and we're excited to share with you our experience.
Shaw U is recognized for being the mother institution of the South and one of the most historically rich colleges in the country. We have a history of tradition, activism, and service dating all the way back to 1865. So we continue to be a huge part of the history of our nation, and it was the first time the National Association hosted an event of this type on our campus.
The boot camp opened up with a guest speaker, Aaron Haynes-Wack, a national race reporter from the Associated Press, who reminded students of the importance of getting a good education and foundation in journalism. She stated that since journalists are being forced to distinguish between facts and alternative facts, in a time where leaders are declaring open warfare on newsrooms, students need the basics in mass communications more than ever. She stressed the importance of the media and encouraged the young journalists to continue to involve in organizations like NABJ to learn and grow.
What was most exciting for me was meeting students who came from all across the U.S. Most of them said the highlight of the boot camp was having journalists embrace them and share their stories.
The workshop titles include such things as Rock Your Stories using Google Tools, Point Your Phone and Shoot, Accuracy in the Digital Age, and To Click or Not to Click. The sessions were very fun and relevant.
And on Friday night, we had a special treat. April Ryan, 2017 NABJ Journalist of the Year, White House correspondent, and Washington, D.C. Bureau Chief for American Urban Radio Networks, delivered a down-to-earth reflection of what NABJ means when it comes to shaping our future in America. She explained how she was schooled and mentored as a young student at Hampton University and how NABJ gave her a voice that has been cultivated into a national presence today.
Good evening. All right, now I'm sick. And I got on a flight to get here for you, so I know you're going to give me some good evenings. So, NABJ, what's it feel like today? How you doing? Ooh, I got a little cold. I don't know what's going on. Roland Martin's got a cold. Someone said, have you been around Roland? I said, no. I'll tell you, it's been crazy over the last couple of weeks. It is the weather. You know, someone who travels with me talking about, oh, this is a heat wave. I said, no, it's not. It's still cold. It was like minus 27 the other day, 11 degrees in Chicago today. Baltimore, I don't even know what the temperature is. Oh my God, it wound up being like 60-something degrees, and it was just like 2 degrees the other day. I'm like, what in the world? So I'm wondering, no wonder why I'm sick. But anyway, I bring you greetings. It is so good to be here for the NABJ Regional. You guys touch my heart. I'm going to tell you why you touch my heart. You put me on a pedestal I never imagined I would be on. You gave me the Journalist of the Year for 2017. And I thank you so much. But also, I remember my NABJ chapter at Morgan State University. Yes, when I was matriculating. Let me take you back there. I was so hungry to be in this business. And that was a time, you know, there are moments when you get older, like me, when you try to do the shoot. And you try to dab and whatever, the other stuff. But back then we were singing Dougie Fresh. Now I'm doing Dougie. I matriculated through Morgan State University when Dougie Fresh had the show. Remember that? Yeah. But for the older heads, yes. For you young people, Google it. I remember starting out. I remember being hungry. I remember walking through campus, taking classes, and understanding that this is the time frame that I started. The information superhighway is coming. I'm like, what's the information superhighway? Remember that? I'm like, what is the information superhighway? It's coming. Well, where are they going to build it? What other road? You know, what stretch of land? Thing like that. This is when I was coming through. I started college in 1985. Graduated in 89. 4 years. And while I was going through, we were looking to tomorrow. We were looking to tomorrow. I mean, I remember people like Dwayne Wickham would come to Morgan State. He's one of the founders of the NABJ. And he would talk to us. And I was never imagined what was in store for me. I was so hungry to be in the business. You know, I wanted to be in TV, but the only place that really felt like it was my sweet spot was radio. Radio. Started out here, I was a DJ. I was spinning records, Sade, Is It a Crime, you know? David Sanborn's Maputo. Remember that? Yeah. Jazz. 88.9 FM, WEA, Morgan State University. I still got it. But I was spinning records between classes on the campus radio station. The campus radio station that is like the heartbeat of the community. Fridays between classes. Sundays in the evening, the shift that someone else didn't want. I mean, I was that girl locked up in Holmes Hall in the tower, spinning records. No one was on campus. I felt like it was empty. I was scared. I was like, is there a ghost in here? So it was crazy. But I wanted it. What is that it? I had this itch for this business. This is a business that there's no gray area. It's either black or white. This business will hurt your feelings. Trust me, I know. This business will hurt your feelings. But I wanted it desperately. And all of these years, I've been in the business. Okay, so my freshman year I started. This was unheard of for a freshman to get on the air at WEA. My first program director, if you don't know his name, Google it. Google him. My first program director happened to be a radio man himself. He was a city councilman of Baltimore at the time. His name was Kwesi Mfume. Yeah, ooh, okay. He was my first program director at Morgan State University. And he brought this little lowly freshman in, unheard of. And I started the process. We had an NABJ on campus, but it wasn't like this. I wish I would have attended a boot camp. I wish I had a boot camp. If I had a boot camp, oh my God, where would I be now? Seriously, I'm not joking. There are people who want to get into this business, who wish they had the ability to be where you are. I'm going to tell you something. This kind of thing gives you an edge up. This workshop, whatever you want to call it, it gives you an edge up. But there are thousands of others knocking on the door. I'm a Morgan State University student from Baltimore, Maryland. Our competitors was HU, Howard University. Howard is entrenched in Washington, D.C. And it takes us a lot to get over. You know, we're like, students on the college campus, you're just looking for a dollar to fall in your face. That's all you're doing. You know, they had that little change to get the metro over to ABC, CBS, CNN. We had to get on the train, catch the metro, ask my day, look, my money ran out. You know, we had to go through all the extra stuff that they didn't, just to get in this business. You have an edge up here. So, telling you about my story. So, I started out as a DJ. I had this yearning, this passion for this business. I had a passion for what I was watching in my home. I grew up in a time, I want you to Google him as well, where you didn't know a person's political persuasion. When you watch the news, it was nothing but the facts check. You know, all sides of the story. Facts. And if it was editorial, it would be at the very end of the show. And it would be set aside as editorial. I grew up in a time when my dad used to sit in his chair after coming home from work. My mother would be in the kitchen, we'd have the TV on. The TV was like the center space in a lot of homes. That was where we got our information. You guys are spoiled rotten. You know, I'm serious. You are spoiled rotten. I'm like, I remember my mother would be in the kitchen, my father would be watching TV. If the TVs were not this, they were these big things, these square things, well, this big picture. It wasn't flat. It was this tube behind it. It was like, it was as large as a table, and there was wood. Yeah, You know, we in the streamline stuff now, right? You know, clean lines. Oh, that was like a box. But we watched that box. That box was like a Bible to us. And I remember, and my father, he would always do the same thing every day. He was a guy who was just regimented to the same activities, doing the same thing. So I said, okay, so what is it, Daddy? And while I'm watching and just as intrigued, Daddy, why are you watching the news? Now, I couldn't have been 10 years old. And this should have sent me packing around. He said, because I want to see when the world comes to an end. You know, but that was, I guess, what it was for him back then. I grew up watching Walter Cronkite, a man who would say that's the way it was. My mother would, you know, she would always have the news station on. I grew up in a home that craved for news and information. You know, think about this. I'm 51 years old right now. That was like the 70s. We had just come out of civil rights issues. We needed to know what was going on so we could be a part. We got our rights now. We need to be a part of the community. Now I'm going to stop and pause for a minute because this is important. And when I say, how old are you guys pretty much? I'm talking about younger folks. I'm talking about the younger folks. 19, 20, 29, 22, okay. Okay, all right, you're young. So what I'm telling you, I want you to write some things down or put it in your phone, because I want you to Google it. You need to know your history, okay? We get out there talking, yeah, we cute, you know, we use this art, you know, nobody does it like me. Oh, trust me, somebody did it better than you. So, and this is family talk, okay? This is family, because I feel like I'm you. I remember my college days just saying, Lord, just let a dollar fall on my face, even though my mother worked on campus. That was a bad scenario. So, but think about this. Why are we so involved and want to know what's going on? Why? Because history has forgotten us sometimes. History has walked over us sometimes. And sometimes we try to shift and change the past for the better. When we talk about the news, I want you to listen to this, write this down, this is going to help you. In our involvement in news, be it a watch or being in the process of it, think about this. I'm going way back. 1619. 1619. That was the year for us, right? To come to this country. Well, we didn't come with a basket. We were brought. We didn't have the invitation. We were taken and told we were coming, stuffed in our ships. 400 years ago, this year, 400 years ago, this year, this is not myth, this is not conjecture, this is fact, okay? No fake news up in here. I can't stand that terminology. 400 years ago this year, 400 years ago this year, 1619, and I can't say it enough, but just in the last 50 years, have we been franchised in this nation as a people. I'm 51. My parents were watching the news because they were seeing all the graphic images. They didn't want to go backwards. They taught me my history. Now listen, this all ties together. We'll be family. I'm telling you, we'll set this room, stays in this room, okay? And for all of you, take it. All right, so. A little over 50 years ago, we got our rights to be able to be in this no, not this building, but I've stayed in a hotel, I'm thinking of a hotel, in a hotel. Civil Rights Act. It's the truth. I'm just 51 years old. You may think I'm a grandma or whatever, but let me tell you something. I'm hip. I was on the Breakfast Club. My kids were like, oh, Mama, you cool. I said, you didn't know that before? 51 years old. Over 50 years, but just over 50, about 51, 50, was it 64 and 65? 64 and 65. Civil Rights Act, that's when we really became franchised in this nation as a people. Then, it's now 51 years since the Kerner Commission report. This is deep. This is not about you just being on TV because you think it's about you. Okay? And I'm telling you, it's not about you, it's about us. Because we are part of we the people who are forming a more perfect union. I'm going to tell you something. 51 years ago, the late President, LBJ, if you don't know the initials, look, you can Google it. Lyndon Baines Johnson. There were riots that were happening in places like Newark, New Jersey, and other places. And we wanted to find out, why were these things happening? And it was about policing. Cyclical, right? You know, Colin Kaepernick just got his money, right? Or whatever he got. We don't know what it is. He didn't read it. That's 2019. I'm talking 51 years ago with this Kerner Commission report. There were riots in urban centers, and the President of the United States wanted to find out why were these riots taking place. So, I'm going to give you a summation. I want you to put the Kerner Commission report down. Kerner Commission report. This is important. The Kerner Commission report. An 11-member panel established by the President of the United States to find out why there are riots happening in black communities over issues of policing. 51 years ago. So, with that, they came out with this report. The summation of the report was still separate and yet unequal. Okay, but let's go to the suggestions. There were some suggestions. One of my former colleagues at the White House. There were some suggestions in that report towards the end, and those suggestions related to black media. Black media. I want you guys to look it up right now. Y'all in class. Y'all not coming here just to hear about me and Donald Trump and Sarah. Let me see this. That's, look, I'm Ratchet and Jason. We can deal with that later. But let's talk about some of stuff. I want you to look it up. And in that report, sometimes you gotta hit them where they are. But in that report, I got a 16-year-old and 11-year-old. I can talk it and walk it. Talk it like you walk it. Whatever, walk it like you talk it. See, I don't feel good. But in this report, it talks about, towards the very end, how to change the dynamic in this nation. And it talks about black journalists being in positions to not just ask about regular news, but news that affects us. That's the Kerner Commission report. Dwayne Wickham is the one who brought that to my attention just a few months ago. That's amazing. The Kerner Commission, K-E-A-R-N-E-R, Kerner Commission report. Google it. It's very important. So, to say all of that, as I was matriculating through Morgan State, I never realized that being in news would carry the weight it carries now. I never realized that. There's a responsibility to inform the masses factually and truthfully and honestly. It's not about me. It's not about me. I can wear all the Christian Louboutin all day long on the A, I can do, what's the latest, what's the nicest, what's a nice outfit? What's the nice design that y'all like? St. John. That's church, that's the first lady stuff. What's the nice design that young people like? Who? Balenciaga. No, we don't, no. Now wait a minute, hold on. Do you not know? If I had a hoodie, do you not know? Do you not know what's going on? Okay, so Gucci and Prada, and maybe even Katy Perry did not go out this way, right? All right, we gotta mute certain things right now, okay? Poor child, y'all give him a break. Y'all know about Gucci though, right? All right, good. Who doesn't know about Gucci? We family here. Who doesn't know about Gucci? Okay, good. You're the only one. We gotta hook you up. We gotta get more current. And you know what? That's the sad thing right now. That is part of popular culture that is now news. And you know why? Because it stems from what happened in the state of where? Say it loud. Virginia. Do you guys know what's happening in Virginia? Okay. Woo. Okay. So, and people are now, as people are being educated through the news about things, people are being called out. So, I never realized the importance of what I did, until, I knew it when I got to the White House. I'll never forget the first day I walked to the gates. I was like, oh my God, this history, a kid from Baltimore. I come from a father who, both my parents are gone to glory. Come from a father who was, he owned a drayage company. He actually, to make it simple, he owned a company, he owned a trucking company that took things from the Port of Baltimore, traveled all around the world, all around the country with it. And my mother, who's from North Carolina, she's my late mother too. She worked in the Department of Student Activities at Oregon State University. So, I didn't come from a silver spoon. I worked my way up. But in the midst of that, my parents also taught me who I was and about my history. And I didn't start out in college as a socially active person. I understood the movement, I understood the struggles, I understood what was going on in life, but it didn't affect me. It wasn't about me at that time, I thought. But when I went to that White House, the magnitude of this historic building built by slaves. Let me say that again. This historic building built by slaves, our ancestors. And to go to those gates the first night and to say, wow, a kid from Baltimore, from Robert Vivian, is going to ask questions of presidents of the United States and leaders of the world. It was humbling. But with that, I took with me the knowledge of my understanding of civics, government, all that stuff. But also what Mommy and Daddy taught me when I was sitting at the dinner table. If I had peanuts on the table, my mother would say, do you know how many uses there are of peanut? And then after she said that, it was about George Washington Carver. Stop at the traffic light. Do you know a black man paid the traffic light? I guess, yes, Mommy. And God knows if we saw anything with the Red Cross. Do you know about Charles Drew? And if you don't know the name Charles Drew, Google him. Google him. I take all of these things with me. And so when they say things about, when the then Chief of Staff, General Kelly, talked about slavery and the compromise. I'm like, that wasn't my history books. And I know because I know because I know. And then you still call sources to find out the facts to make sure you're on the right path. Because if there was a compromise, there was free slaves in the South to this day. So don't get on there. You can never overstudy a subject or overdo too much research if you want to go into news or whatever you want to do in this business. And then, like I said, the Kerner Commission report. Actually, if you want to get into the history of it, 400 years ago, from the time we were brought here, we've had issues with policing since we were slaves. To now. That's why Colin Kaepernick was taking a knee. It wasn't about disrespecting the flag or anything. We are the most patriotic people that there are. We support police, but we want to weed out bad policing. When you ask questions, these things are flushed out. So, with all that said, not understanding or knowing when I started at Morgan State University as a college freshman who was doing Dougie Fresh the Show, loving that, in 1985 to 2019, I could have never have imagined where the twists and turns would have taken me. I didn't sign up for this. God knows I didn't sign up for this. But am I ready? Heck yeah. It's a different day. Back when we started, it was like you didn't fear that a congressional leader or a candidate will come up to you and attack you, physically attack you, because you asked a question. I never would imagine that I wouldn't have to go to a rally because people look at me as an enemy of the people. It's a different day. I never imagined this, but I'm here for it. My parents worked too hard for me, sacrificed for me to be here, but it's not about me. And that's what we gotta remember. When the threats came and stuff, I was like, whoa. When Sean Spicer told me to stop shaking my head, I was like, I'm done with this. I said, this is too much. And I actually thought about leaving, but people called me. And I said, why are you trying to make me stay and everybody else can leave? And I didn't understand until I really understood what it was all about. The Kerner Commission report, the founding fathers who have freedom of the press. I stand on the pillars of I stand on top of the pillars of two great documents that support me. I've done nothing wrong. Why should I go? But the bigger issue is, if I don't ask some of these questions, they won't be asked or answered. I ask questions about every issue. I could ask questions about North Korea. I've asked questions about Iran, Iraq. I've asked questions about Baltimore, Ferguson. But the unfortunate thing is, sometimes now, and the goal line has been moved, it's forever moved. Things have changed from when Walter Cronkite said that's the way it was. We're going down a slippery slope. I don't know where we're going to land, but you're the next generation that's going to help shape it and create it and make it right. There's too much at stake. I think about staying versus leaving. I'm going to tell you why I stay. As long as we are still at a time when Black and brown people have the highest numbers of negatives in almost every category, well, ask those questions based on fact, not opinion. As long as I can still remember the stories about people like Ethel Payne, Harry McGowan, and Alice Dunnigan, those who came long before me, who paved the way, Black journalists. Harry McGowan, over 70 years ago, was in that White House press room, and he wanted to go to a press conference. And the white reporter said, oh, you can't come to the press conference. If you come to the press conference and step on someone's shoes, there will be a riot. Come on now. A riot, just because of the color of their skin. In 2019, I am a White House correspondent for the American Urban Radio Networks and a CNN political analyst, a kid from Baltimore who never would have imagined what God put in front of me. I was that kid who started out on radio, and I was like, oh, you know, never would have imagined I'd written 3 books, award-winning books. Questioned 4 American presidents. I know the name of 3 of them called me, but the last one, I'm not sure. No, I am sure, but it's all right. Never believed that, you know, at 35, I said, oh, well, I guess my TV career is going to be gone. Because I'm getting too old for it. At 51, I'm all over the place. Come on with it, right? Come through, 51, come through. But most importantly, I understand it's not about me. It's about all of us. We can't be fooled into thinking that, oh, because my hair is cute and I'm cute and I can take a good selfie on my life angles. It's about me, it's not. We are people who crave information. We need information. And everything comes to the White House from water, peace, and everything in between. And there's a lot of in between right now, isn't it? There's a lot of in between. Just today, if you don't know, Google it. I'm not here to bash anybody. But you gotta pay attention. You gotta know what you know. You gotta overstudy. You got to be the best at what you do. Because they're coming for us. And I'm going to give you, I'm not going to go into it too much. Don't forget your brothers and sisters here, network. Right now, a lot of us are under attack. A lot of us who are on the national, international stage are under attack. And we have come together. We got this Angela Rock calls it the Wakanda channel. Everybody's on that channel. We just talk. Yeah, there's a friendly adversarial relationship. You might be sitting here with one of your competitors at the local TV station, the local network. You two might be in the same town, competing. But always remember, and I use this with the young fans as said, you know, we always say, I'm my brother's keeper. No, I am my brother. No, I am my sister's keeper. No, I am my sister. This thing is bigger than us. The responsibility is weighty. The question is, are you up for the challenge? You came here for the boot camp. Now you're ready to put on your boots. Are you ready? Do you feel like you can go out there and really just start your career? I'm telling you, when I started, I would not have imagined that I am in this space and this place. It's a different day. I don't know what you want to be, but I'm going to tell you something. The doors are wide open. Don't put yourself in a box. I started out on radio, writing books, writing blogs, on TV, doing a lot of, oh my God. Never thought I could co-host a national TV show. My God. Be ye ready. Be ye ready. With that, I've talked for 30 minutes. Aspire to inspire. Thank you. Drew, do you want me to do Q&A? Okay, all right. I'm sick, but y'all gonna milk this one. Come on. Okay, Q&A. Who has a question? This is us. This is yes, ma'am. Yes, people, stand up. Let me hear your name. Yes. Smile. Yes.
Hi, my name is Christina Collins. I'm a senior at North Carolina A&T.
Yes, North Carolina A&T. I've been there. And I got family that attended school there.
My question is, what advice would you give anybody that wants to become a political correspondent or a political reporter?
I'm glad you said that. I'm glad you said that. Okay, so our North Carolina A&T student said, what advice would you give to anyone who wants to be a political correspondent? We need you. We need you. And I'm going to say this in all honesty. So Ken Strickland, the Washington bureau chief of NBC News in Washington, is brother, good guy. He said, you know, we always talk about political analysts or political reports. Not many of us are going for it. And if you just look at what, I mean, how many of you on social media? Okay. All right, raise your hands high. Every last one of you should be on social media, including teachers. I'm telling you, because unfortunately, social media is now the direction. It's like it's the leader in almost everything. It's unfortunate, but it's true. There's a blessing and a curse of social media. So if you watched on social media, I mean, a lot of thought leaders, people who drive the conversation are on social media driving the conversation. So on social media, CBS put out their political team coverage. How many of you guys saw that? Oh my God, yeah. OMG. Everybody jumped in on that one. Even the NAACP. The NABJ jumped in on that one. I was watching it, and you saw all these faces. You saw men and women. You didn't see one person of color. And so behind the scenes, I heard something. And they said, well, there was this one woman, her contract went out. They were like, one woman? There are thousands of people out there who are capable. You know? But the problem is, we don't have enough of us, according to Kim, and I'm in agreement, who are pushing those doors down in those newsrooms to get someone hired. I'm going to tell you, why can't we do it? We can do it. And see, here's the thing that trips me out. When we go into a mainstream newsroom, we got to learn their news. Why don't they learn ours? Because we always the ones reporting on us. You know, we have to be taught mainstream things. Sometimes some things, some avenues that we don't know. They should be taught on our stuff too. But to your question, I believe that we have to start taking the fear out of it, because politics is very cerebral. The thus thou art, wherefore thereas. The White House is nothing but covering local politics, City Hall, but on a grander scale. You know, City Council down the road on the other side, which is a big building with a dome, and the mayor is just on the other side. It's almost, you know, it's comedy. You have to break that. There's an intimidation with politics. But if you work for the right news organization that will support you with people that you can reach, producers, researchers, and I think we need to break in. We need to go in spaces and places that we're not normally. You know, science reporters, whoever's a brainiac in science should be trying to be a science reporter, because a lot of people don't realize, you know, I don't even know what blood type I am. Sometimes I don't even remember what DNA is. Except when I drive down the street and see the thing for paternity tests. Oh, Lord. No, but I think, are you wanting to go down that road?
Yes, ma'am.
Please do. And I encourage all of you, if you're serious, do it. You never know where it will take you. And I pray that in the next 5 years or so, when do you graduate?
I graduate this year.
Within the next 5 years, I pray that I see you in the White House and you say, remember me from boot camp? Because I ain't going nowhere, just come on down.
Hi, Ms. Brian. My name is Stephanie Douglas.
Okay, I can't hear you.
My name is Stephanie Douglas, graduated from Morgan State University.
Amen, sister.
Thank you. I also have
Morgan State in the house.
I have your badge in exchange for a picture. I gotta give it to Wycliffe.
You don't need to do an exchange for anything. I'll do it. But just know I'm sick and you may wind up. You all right?
I have a strong immune system. I gotta do this for work.
Okay, fine, whatever. All right.
I'm only here for work. But I do have a serious question though.
Okay.
So, a lot of times when I'm out and I try to grab some questions from people, and I know this is similar because when you're in the White House, I have questions and videos, you watch it all the time. People like that when you get knocked down, like people are just over talking to you and stuff like that, and you just gotta stay strong. You know what I mean? So like, what type of advice do you give me? Because I'm young and they
Okay.
like to
I'm
throw
glad
me off.
you, yeah, okay, people will throw you off and
Yeah.
they will discount you because you're young.
Exactly.
Like I said, you have to continue to research and research. You gotta over-research it. What you will do is impress people by your breadth of knowledge on a story or a subject, so they will trust you more. How do I withstand it? Because you know what? My mother used to tell me, again, all those stories my mother used to say, she'd go to the Bible, she'd go to King, she'd quote everybody. She would say to me, it's not what they call you, but what you answer to. That's what Dr. King told me. And I'm telling you, she's gone 11 years. Everything she said to me, I'm standing on it like, Mom, thank you. Because I think about it. It's almost sad. Well, no, it's sad that I think this way. I'm kind of glad that they're not here to see this. Because my father died in August. Worried about me. And he kept saying, what's the FBI saying? But, what you gonna do? But it's not about me. And I looked at it. It's about the fact that I'm not perceived as their base. I'm not perceived as their base. They don't know my politics. I'm not perceived as their base. They want to knock me down because they don't like journalists. They're like, it shows they have a will. You understand what I'm saying? So if you see, don't hate the player, hate the game. So I see the game. It's their game. Once you take the emotion out of it and look at it clearly and realistically, you can do it. I'm like, whatever. When they come out, I'm like, okay.
I see.
It's
But
like,
don't let it bother you at all.
girl, I'm from Morgan State University. I'm from Baltimore. What do you think? Yeah, there's something about a realness. I'm serious. I'm just as real as they come. It's Nancy Pelosi's from Baltimore. Jada Pinkett Smith is from Baltimore. Elijah Cummings is from Baltimore. Enough said, drop mic. So I don't take it personally because I know who I am. I've done nothing wrong. And I see it for what it is. Is my head on a swivel every day? Yes. But I'm not going anywhere. I hope I answered your question.
You did.
Be strong.
Thank you so much.
Be strong. Because you guys won't come under attack. Yes. I need a tissue. Can I blow my nose? I'm sorry. See what happened? Kleenex. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
My name is Brian Bird from Clay, North Carolina, by way of DC, so we got a little connection.
Yeah.
And,
But I'm from Baltimore,
yeah,
DC. Yeah. We're the same hood, okay. Oh, Michael Phelps is from my hood too. Yes. Yes, Michael Phelps is from Olympian. Yes. Go ahead, I'm sorry. DC is in the house, yes.
But I go to North Carolina Central University.
Yes.
Eagle Pride.
I'm sorry. Can I say this to you? I'm a proud bear. Bear eat bison from Howard. Bear eats. Bear eat. Which that? No, when you're on the ground, honey, we'll pounce you.
Like you were saying, I understand it can be frustrating, especially in this political climate and just blatant racism and bigotry and stuff like that.
I've said that. But you can. But go ahead. The blatant racism and the bigotry. Go ahead. No, that's what you're seeing. That's what it could be. You could very well be right.
How do you still speak truth to power, without becoming biased or focusing on?
All right. So thank you for asking that question. So he said he sees the blatant racism and bigotry, and there it is. Okay. I'm not going to deny that. From all sides, it comes from all sides. Even the press. I'm in an attack. I'm under attack even by some members of the press, which is crazy. But anyway, how do I combat it?
Or how do you deal with it?
How do I deal with it?
How do you speak truth to power without having your own agenda or
I don't have an agenda. My agenda is truth. If there's an issue that comes up, okay, for instance, let's talk about the border. Stop. Now, how you gonna cover the border, y'all? How you doing that? How you gonna do that? Am I telling the truth? You got it. Say, okay, this is on the table. So let's say the border. It is not just an issue for Mexico. look at all perspectives. Okay, there's an economic component to it. One, this president wants to, at first we were thinking he wanted a 2,000-mile stretch. If he did shut it down, there would be an economic impact on this country because you have low-wage workers going for agricultural jobs and other jobs that are low-wage, low-paying positions. If they stop that, would stop the influx of those jobs, and other people, they would, they would try to bring other people in. Prices would go up on almost everything. That's not what I'm thinking. I heard that from the head of one of the biggest companies in this nation, the international head, and I can't say which one. Then I've talked to a lot of people on different spectrums, but I also talked to the new head of the Congressional Black Caucus, Congressman Karen Bass. Let me tell you something what she said. She said, April, do you realize that it's not just a Mexican issue? I said, really? She said, there are a lot of brown people that are crossing. I said, really? They're coming from other countries going up against the war. I said, wow. So how am I not jaded? I look at it as a story. It doesn't impact me. Even if it does. But I think about this. If I do my job right and I talk to all sides of the spectrum, somebody who feels like I do at some point will be in that story. But it's not about me. But there is one thing after the midterm, we all watched the midterms. I know y'all were rooting for Stacey and Andrew and Ben. So watch the midterms, but the day of the midterms, let me tell you what happened. I was getting all these emails and videos about voter suppression, how the lines were long and they only had like one voting machine. I was getting video, and seeing how Jesse Jackson had to come in and do things in Georgia. I mean, I was getting stuff. So I saw that election day. So the next day, the president has his press conference. So voter suppression was an issue before the election and worse afterwards, or during and after. So what happened was the president had a pregnant pause between calling on someone, between someone answering and calling on someone. And I said, okay, like the old days with Sam Thomas and Helen Thomas and all, and when I started coming there, that's what they would do. I lobbed a question to the president. Mr. President, about voter suppression. He engaged me, he said, I got your voter suppression. So I stood up thinking he's engaged me. When he saw it to me, sit down, sit down, sit down, sit down. But sir, sit down. I said, okay. So I sat down. He said, okay, here's voter suppression. Those CNN pollers. I stood back up. So Mr. President, what I'm talking about is Georgia, North Dakota, Texas, and Florida. And then he said, how rude I was. As a woman, as a mother, as someone who feels a certain way about herself, that was awful for me. Think about this. You stand in a room for a press conference with the President of the United States of America. The world is watching, to include the people that see you when you go to the grocery store. Tabby Hayes says, to include those people. I'm sorry. She's happy. So, my thing is, it took a lot for me to deal with that. But God being God, the next day, I was scheduled to go on The View anyway for my book. So I got up there and I said my piece about what happened with Whoopi Goldberg and Meghan McCain and Sonny Hostin, Joy Behar, and Abby. What's her last name? I'm sick. Abby Hudson, yes. I'm sick. Y'all better like me even better because I'm sick of it. So I was on there, I said my piece, and I thought it was over. But unfortunately, unfortunately, that's before noon, and that was during the executive time of the president. He watched. So the next day, taking my kids to school, come back, my phone, you're talking about blowing up. Woo! Everybody text me, CNN called me. April, the president just talked to me. I said, what? And I'm on the phone with my boss. My friends text me, April, the president just said something. I said, Lord have mercy, what did he say? I said, just take it down, brace yourself. You heard. And I was like, okay. So I said, okay. Calls me a loser. Yes. Talks about my money. I was like, huh? And he got it wrong. I didn't get a promotion. I got a CNN contract 2 years ago. What? He got it wrong. And then said I have no respect. That's not me. Now that did bother me. God being God, let me tell you. I said, I can't go back. I said, oh, I was very upset. And I had to clean my spirit. I said, Lord, let me clean the spirit. Because I said, I cannot go back. But God being God, that Thursday evening, I guess when we were, that Thursday evening after the view, I got a call, or an email, I got an email from someone from the Red. And they said, would you consider coming out next week to do the Rio Coast? I was like, really? God being God wanted me to heal and Tamara Mallory to heal because she lost her niece in that Thousand Oaks shoot. This is what I'm saying. Things don't happen just by happenstance. So I'm like, Lord, I said, if you don't know, child, I believe in a mighty, unmatched name of Jesus Christ. So I was like, God, what you trying to do here? So I said, okay, that was cool. But then when he did that, I said, I got to get out of town. I went to Los Angeles, didn't look back. And I said, Lord, I need this. And it was the best week ever. The ratings for sure went up 13%. I was even doing a steak. I was like, people like, oh my God, you're not supposed to say that. Don't try me, I was like, that was my way of clearing my head. There are moments, and that was one. And when Sean Spicer told me to stop shaking my head, I thought I'd quit. I am human. I am human. But I had to go back, and I came back, sir, Mr. President, I'm cool. Waiting for the next shoe to drop, but I'm cool. But you have to sometimes go back and take a breath. I'm not leaving. I've done nothing wrong. And then when and so remember when Jim Acosta got his press page book, that's why my name came up. Because he said, I'm a loser. We're going to pull her press page. We're thinking about her. So, what did I do wrong? Nothing. But I'm going to tell you this. I'm not a loser. I'm a winner. Because let me tell you something. That first press conference, he told me, he thought enough of me that I was such a winner that he wanted me to get the Congressional Black Caucus together for me. Right. Am I lying? It was on tape. And then they put me in private meetings with Jared Kushner, his son-in-law, on prison reform. Who's a loser? Winner! Anyway, moving on. I hope I answered your question. We're done. Oh, be careful, Drew. Okay, real quick. Let me hit these three real quick. These three. Oh, come on, guys. Okay, stand up, everyone. I'm gonna hit both of you. We're going to come on. Everybody has a hand up. You and the lady over there. Was there a lady? There was a lady at your table. Okay.
Hi, Clayton Dutton, freelancer from Florida. Thank you for coming tonight. What are your thoughts on Kamala Harris and Cory Booker?
Wait a minute, is this news?
Huh?
You're a freelancer?
Yeah, I'm a freelancer.
I'm not doing that for me. This is for the kids.
No. I'm curious. That's what you're doing.
Huh? Are you attending? Okay. I was like, okay. What I think about what? Oh, you scared me. I'm like, what? You like a freelancer? Okay, what do you want to know?
What are your thoughts on Cory Booker and Kamala Harris running for president?
Are they the only ones?
They're coming. They're the first black candidates that are running.
There could be another company. Could be. Oh, honey, know, this is, well, as a journalist, it's newsy. It really is. It really is. This is a historic time. These people are countering the President of the United States. That's why they're running. But also, I've never seen this. It's over for white males just being candidates. It's over for white males just being candidates. It's not just about white men anymore. It's about women. It's about men. It's about people of color. Julian Castro, you know, Cory Booker, Kamala Harris, all of these people that we're talking about are qualified. They have the pedigree to be president. Question is, will Starbucks cut into it? Will they disqualify each other? There's going to be a lot of people before Starbucks. I'm not putting anything on anybody right now. I think it's great that Kamala Harris is the front runner now, but there's a long time between now and 2020. You got to have the stamina to keep that going and stay the head. Come back to me at the end of the summer, and then let's check in again in the spring of next year. But thank you. Go ahead with your freelance self. Yes. Yes, sir.
How you doing, Ryan? My name is Sandy Sadler, junior English major from Morehouse College by way of Boston, New York.
All right, Morehouse, the house. I was with Spike Lee the other day, and he was doing this the whole time with Spike Lee.
So my question is, you were talking about that you never saw yourself at this point, and one thing that was reiterated to me a lot was a quote by Mark Twain that said, the two most important days of your life are, one, the day you were born, and two, the day you find out why. What was the moment that you originally found out your purpose and you said to yourself?
You know what? That's a good that's more about. That's what Dr. King went to school. So, you know what? And I'm glad you said that because I joke around. I'm like, how did this big mouth girl from Baltimore get this job? And I'm like, Lord, maybe this is why. Because, you know, some days I wonder, you know, I don't have the pedigree of some of those people in there. Vassar, Harvard, Yale. I went to Morgan State. And now I'm considered one of the deans of the press board. It's nothing but God, but I do believe. You know, I'm like, it's just crazy. Maybe, and I'm like, is it because the least of these more? I wonder to ask the question. Joy Reid told me, and said this on Twitter, I think, one time. She said, you know, April Ryan, there was a time when April Ryan was the only one asking questions about the black community. Now it's in vogue. It's in vogue. You know, it's not in vogue, it's Charlottesville. It's Sergeant David Johnson. It's Frederica Wilson. It's Maxine Waters. It's all these issues. It's S-whole nations. It's the southern border. So, I don't know. I do believe this is my purpose, my whatever. I love information, and I love disseminating it. I find it ironic that I was here for the first black president. When we never thought that we would ever see that. Our parents and their parents. I believe God has me here for a reason. I think it's to inform about the least of these. I do. Thank you. I hope I answered your question.
Yes,
All right. Yes, sir. I'm sorry, Drew Barry's gonna pick me up. He wants to give me something. I want to get you. Come on. Let's make it fast.
But hello, Ms. Ryan. My name is Anthony Patterson. I'm a student at Georgia State University.
All right.
My question.
You had the polls at your school, didn't you? Were you the school that had the polls at your school?
Yes, we did. Yes,
Okay. On election day.
Yes, ma'am. But my question was, of course, with time changing, I see a lot of times that our generation, older generations, and the generation coming next to us sometimes do not connect or be on the same agenda as far as achieving equality, achieving, you know, just success within the workplace, more black people within. But my question is, because I know time changes, different things change, what what would you say that you want us to pass on to the next generation for us that you believe in?
When you make it, when you make it, you reach down there and you help a bunch of people and you make it pass it on. Because that's the, you know, sometimes it's who you know gets you there, but what you know keeps you there. Because sometimes we gotta have that who you know. When you make it, I tell you, network, bring people with you. Bring people, and I'm gonna tell you something, what I hate is when you help somebody and they cut you. You know, Drew shaking that head. It's the truth. But you know, we gotta shake it off because it's too much riding on it. We gotta help our brothers and sisters come through. Come through for me now. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, you can Friday. My name is Lakeith Morris, and I am a student in North Carolina A&T State.
All right.
I'm also from Baltimore, Maryland.
Oh, sister, yes. Morgan in the house, and Baltimore in the house, yeah.
My question for you is, you know, coming from Baltimore, we have kind of a film over what's going on in the world until we really get out and we're exposed to so many things, I feel like. I want to know from you, how did you balance just trying to sacrifice so much? Because I feel like you put in so much hard work, and sometimes for me, I'm trying to balance like my personal life and also balancing just being able to manifest my purpose for the world. So how did you balance those two? What was the
Let me tell you something. It's hard to balance, but you have to prioritize, and you have to figure out how to do it. I think I've got 3 or 4 jobs right now. I speak, I'm here speaking, I write books, CNN, AURN, what else I do? And I'm a mama. That's, yeah. Mommy, where's my sock? It was on, you know, before I came in here, I had to get them an Uber to go back to school. I'm like, oh my gosh. It's hard, but you have to prioritize. And the great thing is, once you put in the work, once you have, what do they call it, paid your dues, and get a little name for yourself, you can kind of, don't take it for granted, but you can kind of demand what you want to a certain extent. You know, if I have to do CNN at 11 o'clock at night, I'm not in D.C., I live in Baltimore. Baltimore, D.C., from where I live, it's like 60 miles away. Yeah, each way, it's like a 2-hour drive. So by the grace of God, there's a thing called a truck that comes to my house, a studio truck. 11 o'clock, you want to hear it? Come on, bring the truck. And that's the blessing. And in turn, I try to be the best April that I can be and give them the news that they want. But you always never take it for granted. I mean, and I told them I'm a divorced mother with 2 kids. And it's hard. It's hard. But you have to figure out, and I don't think, you know what, Baltimore didn't put a film on me. Baltimore is as real as you get. It's a community with so, and see, don't get fooled by Baltimore too, because you see that Freddie Gray piece, yeah, that's real, that blight is real, but there's also great communities there. Nancy Pelosi's from a place called Little Italy, a community of shops and restaurants, one of the nice places of Baltimore. There are a lot of nice places in Baltimore, but there's also a realness there, survival. So in the midst of survival, you got to turn it in. Don't ever lose who you are, because that, you bring who you are, that uniqueness of you to the table that people would want. But you also have to figure out how to now work within the community, the larger community. But be true to yourself, prioritize, but also climb. Don't have sharp elbows, but climb. And I would say to all of you, and I'm going to end on this, don't limit yourself. Sometimes we could be our own worst enemy. We have fear of success, fear of walking in a space that we've never walked before. Walk boldly, but know what you're doing, okay? Assess the land and do that thing. Because we need to break down our doors. Do that thing, thank you.
It was a fun 3-day event, and one student sat down with me to talk about it, and Odafle Okwe is her name. and she's a senior in the Division of Communications and Humanities. And this is what she had to say. Hi, what's going on, y'all? It's your guy, Justin Young. I'm here with the winner of the 2018-2019 Derek Wittenberg Foundation Scholarship, Ms. Odafe Okoye.
Hi.
How are you doing today?
Hi, thank you for having me.
Thank you, no problem. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yes, so I'm Odafe Okoye. I'm currently a senior at Shaw, majoring in interdisciplinary studies, and my discipline focuses are in history and English. So obviously I like to write a little bit. And so yeah, I'm looking forward to graduating and seeing what life has to offer after Shaw.
All right. So what made you join the NABJ boot camp?
To be perfectly honest, I had initially intended to attend All-Star Weekend in Charlotte.
Right.
And as soon as the flyer came out, I asked Dr. Mitchell if I could attend as a registrant or see if I could help, because I saw April Ryan was going to be speaking.
Right.
And I wanted the opportunity to see her in person. And so that was really what made me jump on the opportunity.
Okay. So what did you know about the event before you attended?
Really not very much. I wasn't even aware that there was a National Association of Black Journalists.
Right.
But I just was interested in kind of learning more about what other opportunities are out there besides just being a newspaper writer or contributor. So,
okay.
Yeah.
So what do you know now that you have attended the event?
Now that I've gone, I do understand that there's a lot more avenues outside of journalism. And I will say too, it was a good learning experience because I have been in the workforce for a while.
Right.
So just seeing that a lot of their experiences are similar to mine, regardless of what industry you're in, it's kind of comforting to know that I'm not alone there.
Right.
And kind of how to navigate when I do encounter certain issues in the workplace.
Gotcha. So what would you say is the best thing about the event?
Obviously, that point of knowing that I'm not alone when certain issues arise, but also just knowing, you can write for a financial magazine or a finance magazine, or you can be a sports writer. And you're not necessarily just the person behind the desk spouting the news. You can actually investigate and take and be an active participant and contribute in more ways than what you probably thought going into it. So I appreciate the exposure.
Yeah, you feel like it was worthwhile?
Absolutely. I think anybody that's even just curious about it should go, or is just intellectually curious and wants to learn should go.
Do you feel like Shaw did a good job hosting it?
Oh yeah, Shaw definitely did a great job hosting. It was definitely on brand. It's Black History Month,
Exactly.
where we have a nice concentrated group of Black journalists all in the same place that are making history on the oldest HBCU in the South. So
Exactly.
we are history. It's perfect to me.
sir.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for coming.
Thanks.
On Saturday, Roy Woods Jr., comedian and the writer of The Daily Show, discussed storytelling and how he uses it in his everyday life.
I'll just use this mic. This is fine. Can I lean on the podium like this? Is this professional? Thank you all. Good afternoon to everybody. How are you? Thank you to my former J School classmate there for the nice introduction. I appreciate him not telling y'all that, he was also my boss at the FAMU, correcting me on all of my AP style book errors. To this day, I still don't always nail exactly. You're the only friend I email who copy edits the email when you reply to the email, and I want to thank you for that, Mark. I want to thank you for that sincerely. A little bit about me first. Like you said, I graduated in broadcast journalism, but I've had probably a pretty atypical career when it comes to journalism. So my degree is in broadcast, but all of my experience on campus was in print. When I graduated from FAMU in 2001, the first thing I realized is that I had spent every summer working the stand-up comedy circuit instead of pursuing internships. And as we all know with journalism, an internship before you graduate is the key to getting anything decent. So I ended up at morning radio instead. So morning radio was not where I placed my focus when I was in school, but is where my interests were upon graduation. So for 8 years, I co-hosted and eventually produced and was the head writer of the Buck Wild Morning Show, 95.7 Jams in Birmingham, Alabama. During that time, still touring as a comedian, eventually culminating with me hosting my own morning show in the Birmingham market for 2 years, the Roy Virginia Show, also on 95.7 Jams. I did that for 2 years before returning back to television as an actor, and then eventually finding myself on The Daily Show, which is a weird kind of convergence of the two disciplines that I had, which was comedy and broadcast. And when you see people talk about The Daily Show, you know, in most traditional media outlets, the Comedy Central is quick to say that it's a comedy show. That's the first thing they'll say. They'll say it's a comedy show. It's comedy first. But when there's studies held, especially with a lot of millennials, The Daily Show is where they get their news. It wasn't CNN, it wasn't MSNBC, it wasn't Fox News, it was Comedy Central. And so there are some journalistic tenements to that show that I think that a lot of our producers have, that I know Trevor Noah has. I can't speak for Jon Stewart, I wasn't there under him. But for me, when I look at what I learned in J School, comparable to what's applied now when I'm out in the field for The Daily Show, it's journalism. The only difference is that I have to find a joke. So I can find the deepest, darkest story, but I have to find a joke. I have to find some sort of levity. And traditionally, what I've been able to see in the stories that I try to find, the stories that attract me are stories that it can be a serious issue, but there has to be some sort of pushback or there has to be confusion. And generally speaking, where there's confusion or where there's tension, there's a joke. At minimum, there's sarcasm. So I'll give you an example of a story. So we did a story last summer in Chicago where I did a walk along through the south side of Chicago with gang interrupters. And if you don't know what they do, this is people, former gang members, who literally walk the streets and walk and talk to gang members who are furious and about to retaliate. The moment a shooting happens, they know who did it, and they won't tell the police out of confidence to the people in the community to go and talk to the rival gangs and convince them, hey man, don't do this, this is not, don't retaliate. And so it's the type of story where there shouldn't be any comedy. And what I found is that when you have stories that surround something that's very delicate, especially concerning black people and the issue that's affecting our people, I think it's important that sometimes you can find a story that exists on the outer orbits and you can talk about the central issue. The central issue is gang violence and how do we end it. The jokes come from the city not funding them. And that's where we were able to find some of the conflict and some of the tension and still able to do a story that honored the people of Chicago while at the same time not disrespecting them, not making them the butt of the joke. And I can't speak for everyone in this room and the various outlets that you work for or what you're experiencing on campus as students, but the one thing that you have with the black community is their trust. And once you have that, you cannot betray it. And it takes years to build that back. It takes ages to build that back. So when you have someone that is trusting you with their story, you have to handle that appropriately. It took us almost 2 hours to get the green light to go down the block to talk to two of the gang members that were posted up on the sidewalk. And when we did, we had a real conversation. You can pull this up on YouTube. And one of the gentlemen in the piece, 3 weeks later, was shot and killed. And so that is the type of story that I feel like we were only able to tell and even able to get down the block to talk to this gentleman by having some level of trust. And sometimes you have to go through a third party, as we did, which is the people of Chicago. Another example I give of being able to try and find something that's delicate, and this is, and I say this to challenge the young journalists in the room, because the thing that I have learned on The Daily Show is that you don't always have to be first to a story. And we're in a rush now to be first. And I can't speak for newsrooms. I know that there's probably some pressure in the newsroom to hurry up and get something out online so we can get the clicks and get the engagement and data, statistic, blah, 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 blah. I don't know all the internet talk. But what you can be, if you're slow and an extra day, is more specific. What you can be is someone that has a better angle or approach. And that's probably the one thing that I have learned at The Daily Show that I didn't learn anywhere else, especially not with radio, because, you know, hip-hop radio is a totally different discipline of journalism. Hip-hop is literally what everyone else is talking about right now. We're going to talk about that. We're not here to give you anything new. More often than not, with morning radio, we only got you in the car for 20 minutes, 30 if it's a bigger city and the traffic's bad. So the time spent listening isn't high enough for you to go deeper on something and pontificate. But if you're doing television, if you're doing print, you have an opportunity to do things that speak to a much more specific prism of a story. It doesn't just always have to, you know, we were just talking about this in the back, like with the Virginia governor. So when that story broke, it's, oh my God, blackface, can you believe blackface, blackface, blackface? Which is a fair story. But then the second layer to that story becomes, who was the yearbook editor that greenlit a blackface picture being in the yearbook? There's a much deeper conversation with the MAGA hat boy that was staring at the indigenous person at the rally a month and a half ago. And that was originally the story. And I don't know if you saw how that story unfolded over the next 72 hours, but it was interesting because it started as this bratty little kid, look at this bratty little kid. And then it was, oh my God, what the hell is going on at this school? And it was layers of stories of racism and all types of craziness that were going on at that school. And those were the layers that were deeper, and I think journalistically speaking, they're far more interesting. And when you find stuff like that, you're able, or at least I'm able to at The Daily Show, I'm able to find something that's funny, something that's a little more meaningful, something that has some heart. I'll give you another example of a story like this. When we were there, when I got hired at The Daily Show, it was the same year as the 25th anniversary of the Million Man March. So they had the Justice or Else March in DC. And The Daily Show, we got a black host, we got some black writers, we got some black staffers, but I'm gonna be real, it's a white ass building. It's just what it is. And most of you all are going to be working in some white ass newsrooms with a lot of less black people that are in this room right now. And so the hurdle that I had at The Daily Show when I first started was figuring out this way, and I don't like to use the word trick, but I'm trying to figure out a way, like, we know what this story is about. I know the story is about putting a camera at that's honoring one of the most seminal moments in black history as far as I'm concerned, and we're gonna be back there marching, and it's gonna be this beautiful, positive thing. Our camera should be there, I wanna be there. So what's the story that I can get my white editor, who may not understand the gravitas of this story, what is the angle in which to kind of sell that to him? And so the slogan was justice or else. And so what I noticed online, and I'll get to this in a second, but what I noticed online from Black Twitter, sidebar, to the young journalists in the room for sure, follow as many different types of black people as you can online. Even if you have to set up a ghost account, that is your ear to the street. That is what you know what people are talking about, what people are thinking, and you can get ahead of that, because if people are asking questions already online, you have an opportunity to create a piece that answers those questions. They're already showing you what the demand, they're showing you what there is a demand for, so go create it. Go create, they're showing what there's a need for, so you give them supply and demand. Listen, I didn't take economics, all right? Y'all know what the hell I'm trying to say. So, what I noticed from some black people, it was justice or else. And the or else was very open to loose interpretation. All right, if we don't get justice, what are we gonna do? What's the plan? And it was 50 different responses to or else. No one could put their finger on what the or else would be. So for me, that was the story, and that's what I took. That's what I took to my producer. Now, I can't tell him that, let's just be real, I just want to go there and point a camera at black folks being dope, and I just want to have a couple of man on the street interviews. If you go watch the piece, that's all it is. But to get out the door with the camera crew, well, what this is a segment about just how diverse the views are of the black community about and how there's no one solution to the thing. And I think if we're there, we can get these different solutions and we're together. Like, that's literally what I have to do on a week-to-week basis. But once you figure that out, then you're able to do things that are more meaningful. Because if you look at the coverage of the Justice or Else March, it was not at the top of the public conversation that weekend. Black people knew about it, but CNN barely covered it, and they didn't cover it until the actual speaking started. Any other march that's mainstream that we've had since then, you know about it the week before. They tell you the march coming, they tell you on Wednesday what the roadblocks gonna be, they tell you on Friday. They release a list of the speakers like it's a damn comedy show. You know which stage to go attend. And I think that we have an opportunity. Vanessa DeLuca, who's the former editor-in-chief of Essence magazine, says something to me that's always resonated with me. She said, don't follow the conversation, create the conversation. And it's on a cork board on my wall at work. And I think where the internet has gotten us to a degree is where we're very quick to follow the conversation. And I think that we are the creators of that, especially when we talk black culture and how black culture dictates which way this country moves. It dictates which song this country nods their head to. It dictates what other people wear. And I think being a black journalist, black stories have a way of resonating on a national level, because more often than not, it's happening to us before it happens to everybody else, be it bad or good. So for me, that's one way that I try, and I know this wasn't what I was supposed to talk about. I know it said something about storytelling. I'll get to that. But it's a legitimate issue that I've had. And if I have it on a comedy show, I know y'all got to be having it in the newsroom where ain't nobody funny. This issue of figuring out ways to get out the door with black stories that you know will resonate with millions of people, and that resonate and speak to people that aren't necessarily black. You need to know this when your supervisors don't always see the value in that. And I think that that's something that you should always be cognizant of, you know, because what we do with the Daily Show, I truly believe at the end of the day, it is a form of journalism. I do a piece and I inform you on something, answer the who, what, where's, and every now and then and there's a joke or two. There may not be a solution to the issue on which we're telling jokes about, but you know, you just have to focus and really buckle down, and you start figuring out the ways to do that. To the point of storytelling, I'll say briefly, it helps to think about what you're creating, and this is be it visual or print. If you think about it as we think of our field pieces as a 3-act sketch, the same as a 3-act story structure of a half-hour sitcom, where Act 1, you set up the issue, Act 2, you set up the conflict, Act 3, you have resolution, climax and resolution. So when you're looking at interesting ways to tell stories, for me, what I enjoy, I love trying to do stuff in a flashback. Sometimes I love to start with the end and then go back to the beginning and then proceed. I don't know if any of you all saw the series premiere of American Soul with, on BET with Don Cornelius, Soul Transit. So that show in the pilot, the first scene starts with the last moments of Don Cornelius' life. And then it flashes back to the 1960s, 70s, and it starts telling you the story of his matriculation through the television industry. I would advise everyone in this room, as you're constructing the stories that you want to tell, to watch dramas. I don't know what you watch on television, but watch dramas as much as you can. Watch comedy as much as you can. Diversify. Even if it's something that you hate, watch one episode of it. If it's something that's boring you, watch one episode of it. Because what you'll start seeing is that storytelling, no matter the medium, it's pretty much the same. It's, here's the characters, here's what the characters are dealing with, and let's see if the characters get through it. The only medium that I think doesn't necessarily follow that story structure is documentaries. Documentaries are told a million different ways, but when you look at writing and what you're writing, and you're writing a compelling piece, you know, I feel like that lead sentence is as important as the lead paragraph, but also feel like the last paragraph is just as important. And, you know, I've been thankful to be able to write a couple of op-eds here and there for various publications during my time at Comedy Central that I feel like have helped me kind of keep that blade sharp, so to speak. But I would implore to everyone in this room to think about the people that you're telling the story about. And sometimes it's about not necessarily the bigger issue, but sometimes it's about a single person that's being affected by the issue. Because sometimes if you can personalize a story, then it makes people care more about the issue. That's something that I struggle with, is that there are a lot of things that are going on right now where the issue can become long-winded and convoluted. And we don't necessarily care about issues in this country. We do, but we care more about people. So if you can individualize anything that you're doing, if you can personalize it on some level, then I think you also have a story that's more meaningful. And through that person that you're focusing on in the story, you're able to illuminate the issue if you just focus on the one person. So that's something else that we also try to do a great deal at The Daily Show. I'm trying to think of some of the other black women. Marlon, what's some of the other black pieces I've done? I've done like 9 to the police, the police reform. So we did a walk along. Well, there's 2 stories I'm working on with the police. I tend to get excited when the police say yes to sitting down with us, because more often than not, the police ain't trying to talk to nobody in any capacity. We had an opportunity in Madison, Wisconsin, and this is another piece that's up online right now. Madison, Wisconsin had a questionable a questionable officer-involved shooting with an 18-year-old black man. Of course, the officer wasn't indicted, but they implemented bias training. And so we went in and did a whole journey through the police department's bias training, but the entire story was basically about the captain of the police department. And it's easy to focus on the young man and his family, and the family's loss, and the family losing his, but when you're trying to be sensitive to something, then let's try and look at the person who claims that they're part of the solution, or who says that what they're doing is going to solve this thing. And so that was one story that we tried to tell through someone. Now, whether you love them or hate them, that's not up to me. But rather than tell a broader story about police departments all over there, right now there's 20 police departments nationally that have some sort of bias training. But rather than talk about all of them broadly, let's just go to one city, talk to one dude, and ask him why he did it, and go through that. And within that, you find out that there's more police departments doing this, and you get a deeper dive. And I feel like you get something that's much richer. We're trying to do a piece right now with the NYPD. In prison, the state of New York has changed the guidelines for what is acceptable literature in the prison system, and it's down to 70 books. There's only 70 books that you can buy for a prisoner, that a prisoner is allowed to read. 30 of them are coloring books. It's like coloring books and worksheets. There's a couple of Bibles and religious pieces, but nothing really meaty. No meaningful literature is being allowed in prison. Meanwhile, on the outside, the new NYPD is using books and literacy in a lot of black neighborhoods as a way to combat crime. There's a connection statistically between literacy rates and crime rates in certain neighborhoods. So they feel that books are a way to decrease crime, where if you have insight, so you get the conflict, you understand? So now the conflict is one group of law enforcement saying books are bad, and another one saying that books are good. So now you have this conflict, you got the jokes. So now all I need is one young man on the outside that can speak to that, and hopefully we get to talk to somebody on the inside that's dealing with the same thing. And that's what I mean when I say, when you talk about storytelling, personalize as much as you can. And I think that you have something that touches people a whole lot more. That's pretty much all that I had. I'm trying to think. I think that was pretty much everything. I didn't really have a lot to say outside of that. Slow to talk, no rush. Yeah, talk to people. Yeah, we covered that. Yeah, Twitter. Follow people on Twitter. I guess is it just me, Marlon? Do I have time for a couple of questions, and then we'll parlay outside and take a picture or two? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Benay Wilson. I'm an aviation journalist, and I'm the president of the Baltimore Association of Black Journalists. And I'd like to ask you, I know about your dad, Reverend Senior, and I'd like to ask you how much his journalism career, Google Reverend Senior, how much his career in Birmingham as such a pioneering journalist affected the work that you do and the path that you took.
Understood. So my father was a journalist, pretty much from the 50s on. He was the first black broadcaster at a lot of radio stations that he worked. He was one of the founding members of the National Black Network, which was essentially the black CNN of its time. And that was a nationally syndicated news network. He also hired Don Cornelius. Little trivia fact, Don Cornelius asked my dad to be a partner with him in Soul Train. Yeah, and my daddy said, nobody wants to see black people dance for an hour. That's for real. But yeah, my father was an embedded reporter with black soldiers in Vietnam, capturing the reality of the black experience, to be a black soldier abroad, black commentator, the whole nine. That's just to give you the backstory. But to answer the question, I used to go with my father to his speaking engagements a great deal. And at the time, you think that's nothing. He just talking black people get that. Like back in the 60s, if you show me any civil rights march photo, any photo from any civil rights march, I guarantee you my father's 2 rows behind Dr. King, covering and documenting the entire event. So for what he did at the time as a child, you don't understand it. I didn't really appreciate it, I'll be honest. But as I got older, and I'd say I'm 40 now, I'd say somewhere around 32, 33 is when I started kind of having this realization about the world and what's going on. And I think the only difference between my father and myself is that I try to do it through jokes. And my dad was much more of a straightforward, almost on some, this is what you need to do. And this, like my dad would be one of them dudes with a YouTube channel now just yelling at you. Yeah, but it had high subscriptions though. Don't think he would have like 3 views. My dad would have 5 million views. So I hope that answers the question. Back there. Morehouse, man.
Hi, how you doing? Zane Sadler from Morehouse College, all the way in Bronx, New York. First of all, I just want to say your jokes on the Daily Show much better than Trevor Noah's.
Oh, well, thank you, brother. I'll take that.
From watching that, and also This Is Not Happening, I didn't necessarily, I kind of saw that you didn't really necessarily have the straightest pathway to your success. So was there any moment in time where you were just like, it was sort of like a light hit, and you was like, this is what I wanted to do? I didn't necessarily see the straightforwardness of you ending up on behind that podium.
For me, so backstory on me, when I was 19 at Florida A&M, I got arrested for stealing blue jeans from Macy's because I wanted to look fresh for homecoming. It's for real. Yeah, you know what's crazy? You get arrested, they try to pin, when you get arrested, the police try to pin every other crime that happened in the city on you. Like, who got the drugs? Who got it? I'm like, hey man, it's homecoming week, all right? I just wanted some jeans. But to answer the question, those 2 days in jail, because my mama didn't come get me. My mama didn't come get me. And when I came out, when I came out of jail and I ended up on probation, it also put me on probation on campus. So I couldn't pledge a fraternity. I couldn't even play flag football. All I could do was write for the family and take my ass home when my classes were concluded. I wasn't even allowed to hang out on campus. And so that gave me the focus to really get it together, because you'd be surprised how much time you waste on campus just hanging with people. And to the students in the room, find you some dreamers and hang with them. And I don't care what the dream is. Whatever the dream is, you need to be with people that have a congruent level of work ethic as you. And one of the biggest flaws of my career is wasting my 20s hanging with people that didn't have no goals. And because it was fun to drink and hang out and kick it, and I don't want to turn into a ABC after school special on you, right? But I'm serious about that. If your goal is apples and their goal is oranges, you better off hanging with them than somebody who ain't got no goals at all, because you'll start seeing the congruence. And then what happens, funny thing will happen, when you graduate, you'll start gravitating towards all those people from campus who you remember that were also doing the damn thing, who you passed by. I would wish I'd had the foresight to hang with Will Packer. Wow. He was right there. He was right there. Will Packer, Rob Hardy, Anika Noni Rose, but no, I was on the set, hanging out. So, you know, I'd say for me, that was the biggest difference in discovering that comedy was the vehicle, but then figuring out what the actual content of it was. It's just something that eventually you grow into. But just find your North Star and just always walk towards that, and only walk with people that's walking that same direction.
Thank you.
So,
How you doing?
I'm good, brother.
Good. My name is Brian Bird. I'm from Clay, North Carolina, by way of Washington, D.C.
Okay.
And I go to the North Carolina Central University. Getting pride.
It's fine. Nobody's perfect, right? Good, I understand. Represent.
My question is simple, like, where do you get your passion for comedy from?
Where do I get my passion for comedy?
Like, where do you get it from?
You know, I don't know. You know, all I know is that one day around 13, 14, I started seeing Sinbad on TV, and Comedy Central first became a network around that time, I'd say about 10 or 11, and I started seeing all of the stand-up shows, and Comedy Central used to show Saturday Night Live reruns from the 80s. That was like the original syndicated program. It was just all the Eddie Murphy years. That was the base programming on Comedy Central. And so I saw Eddie Murphy, I saw Sinbad, and then I started discovering all the Red Fox CDs and all of that. And I was always funny. I was never good at athletics. Every sport I played, I rode the bench. But when you ride the bench, your job is to crack jokes on the opposing team, and I was good at that. I was sharp. And so I would start writing insults to yell at the other team, and that was essentially my first comedy set. And if you could crack one of the adults in the crowd at a baseball game, then you knew you had a good joke. And so that was kind of where that first taste came from.
Good afternoon. My name is Tony Benton Jr. from Atlanta, Georgia. I'm from Georgia State University.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. My question is in regards to NABJ stresses heavily on getting mentors, having mentorship, having that guide. What's your take on mentorship? And as you were growing, who were some mentors that you looked up to?
I'd say my first mentor, I had two good mentors at Florida A&M. One was Dr. Kenneth Jones, who was in the film and TV department. He was in the TV department, but Dr. Jones also was like making documentaries. He was the only professor I had that had like side hustles. And I always found that interesting. I'm like, because he's teaching us journalism by day, and he goes, yeah, I gotta go shoot my documentary, but then I'll be back to class in the morning. And that always stuck. Now that I'm older now, I understand what that hunger was. I take that back 3. Dr. James Hawkins at Florida A&M as well, the late great. He was someone that looked out for me and kind of gave me a little bit of guidance with regards to how to focus journalistically. And there was a gentleman by the name of Gordon Graham. And Gordon Graham used to be on CNN Headline News at the time, but they had just created Florida's News Channel. And so Florida's News Channel, I don't know if it's still on, Florida people, but it's still on. Okay, so he was one of the original anchors on Florida News Channel, but he also taught mass media at FAMU. And so those people were, and Stuart Scott, but I never met him, never got to speak with him, but that was someone I always was always tracking their career. I'd say journalistically, those were the main people starting out, but then because my path was so atypical from radio and all these other things, I didn't get the proper nurturing at any one spot, but I feel like I got just a little bit of what I needed from every person along the way. I don't believe, and to the broader question of mentorship, I don't believe that there's any one person that can solve all of your problems and answer all of your questions in a landscape that's constantly evolving. But what they can tell you is what they've been through. So gather as many experiences from people as you can about their past, because people are quicker, you know, because when you're looking for mentorship, what I found in reaching out to people cold turkey, people are quicker to talk about themselves than they are to help you. So the way you trick them is ask them a question about their come up. Because people will be happy to tell you about their journey, and somewhere in their come up is something that can help you. And then on that follow-up email, you go, cool, here's what I'm dealing with. And I think that's an easier path to, at minimum, getting some base level knowledge from anybody that you reach out to. Which, as a matter of fact, also, if anybody want to send me an email, my email address is rwoodjr@thedailyshow.com. Yeah, thedailyshow.com. rwoodjr@thedailyshow.com. I think mentorship is valuable, but I also feel like the people that we look up to more often than not are too busy to give us the attention we need. So you just have to be prepared to do some of the stuff yourself, but more often than not, the people that are where you're trying to go, just find out where they came through, and it'll all come together. I know there's one more question, Mom, in the back. There was a sister all the way in the back who had a question I didn't get to. Yes.
Hi, I'm the end of a public radio journalist, and I taught Roy his senior year at 40.
Oh, that's not the end. That's the end. She used to babysit me back in the day. That's a true story.
So I just wanted to let everybody know, whatever Roy says, when he was a senior, and I taught him radio practicum, which was in class Monday through Friday, every day, because they had to produce the news live on the air, so they all hated it. Roy was like, I will do whatever you want me to do. Any story, and I could just not work Fridays, because he always had a gig on the road. And so I did show him favoritism, and I did give him maybe harder stories, because I was like, this boy has to go. You know, he has a job, and he'd go to some little town, quit whatever he was driving.
Oh, it was the Greyhound. Yeah. I didn't have a car yet.
I actually went out to be off on Fridays and kind of wouldn't tell other students because he had a gig somewhere. And so I was never going to squash that dream. So good for you.
Thank you. I can't thank you enough. All right, the last two right here and here. All right, we'll go here first.
Hello, my name is Sierra Ivy. I go to TPE Illustrious North Carolina Agricultural Technical State University. I know you talked about hard news stories and that you're trying to get a story out, but what about stories that are controversial, like the Me Too movement and LGBTQ issues like that? Do you just avoid it altogether, or do you try to make it?
I've never tried to avoid controversial stories because, again, those stories are in the conversation. They're part of the lexicon. You know, again, the challenge I have at the Daily Show is to find the joke. I got nothing if I don't have a joke. And when you get into stuff that's a little more serious, it's more difficult to find that stuff. And then also think that we're dealing with the issue now on a bigger level as a society when it comes to agency and whose right it is to tell the story. And I feel like when you look at something with the Me Too movement, for me, depending on the entry point of the story, it might not be my place to tell, and it might be better for a woman correspondent to carry that story. We have Dulce Sloan, black woman, amazing. We have Jabuki Young White, and I know that he can speak to a lot of the issues with the LGBTQ community. So it's about figuring it out. We're trying to work on a piece now about a bunch of dude bros in Wall Street who are complaining that they can't flirt anymore. Exactly. Which is to say, like, you felt that? You felt the comedy right there? Like that? That is men who don't get it. And men who don't get it that's one that I probably could do. That's one I could probably do, and you're able to do that without really focusing on some of the more darker parts of the reality of what's going on with the Me Too movement. But the short answer is no, we don't run from the story. We just have to figure out what the entry point is. Last one.
How you doing? I'm Malcolm Beeman, and I'm from Jamestown, North Carolina, and I currently attend North Carolina Central University.
I'm just saying, man, an eagle could die from a rattlesnake bite. That's all I'm saying. I don't know if you've seen the Discovery Channel. That's all I'm saying.
Like, say you have serious news and, like, you know, try to make a joke out of it. So when does that joke go too far?
When do the jokes go too far? I think that is up to the person receiving it. Everybody has a different line in the sand, and you just have to decide for yourself what's funny and what's appropriate or not. We do a segment, I give you a perfect example. I can show you the tweet from 2 days ago. We do a segment on the show called CP Time. So in this segment, CP Time, the show is basically a parody of the old school PBS black shows where it's an old school brother, I'm here to tell you about black history. And did you know on this day in 1917, it's me doing an impersonation of an old black intellectual, but within that character, we're presenting actual little known black facts. Some are really amazing, like we did the piece earlier this week about appropriation of black music, and there's certain music that we associate now as being white music, but it's got black roots. House music and EDM. EDM is a derivative of house music. House music has black roots. The banjo is associated with bluegrass and people in the mountains, but the banjo is an old school 17th century West African instrument. So that's real knowledge delivered comically. And then also, this is a real black fact, LL Cool J has never died in a single movie. Is that not black history? So that's a perfect example of a joke that we take and use as a vehicle to deliver something that's very meaningful. And that's real information. And that's something, especially with The Daily Show, which still from our ratings data, is still a 70% white viewership. So you're giving game to white people and letting them know this is what the hell is going on. However, there are some black people who feel like this is disrespectful to what civil rights soldiers fought for. They feel like the character. They don't even care about the information. I've never said anything disparaging in this costume. I've never done anything to disrespect what these people did and the work that they put in. We did a piece on a black man who invented the video game cartridge. The video game industry exists today because of this man. His family reached out to us and told us, thank you. The family of somebody in the piece. And there's still somebody on Twitter who say I'm a racist and I'm disrespectful. So what you gonna do with that? You have to decide what your truth is. You have to decide what's funny to you. And hopefully the people still rock with you. And if not, hopefully they don't cancel you because I gotta pay for my son's college education. So that's it. Well, I can't thank you all enough. Thank y'all so much for listening to me. I appreciate this. I'll be outside if y'all want to do or something, but enjoy the rest of the weekend, man. Thank y'all so much at NABJ.
By attending this NABJ boot camp, students experience something epic. We are thrilled that the National Association of Black Journalists chose Shaw University to host the boot camp this year, as we will cherish those memories forever.
Well, that's just one example of the things that we've been able to do this year at Shaw U.
And we're glad that you could join us for this edition of What's Up at Shaw U.
This has been another edition of What's Up at Shaw U. Thank you for joining us.